Well, hi, Carrie.
Hi, Leslie. How are you today?
I'm all right. Thank you so much for joining us for a little short conversation. This is Karey Trimmings, and she is the founder, instigator, catalyst, and major engine of Saratoga Springs SNACpack, which is an extraordinary program that is serving a range of our children in more than just Saratoga Springs, I believe. Is it beyond just?
We are just in Saratoga Springs, but I have been able to assist other school districts in getting programs similar to ours up and running over the last few years.
I'm going to see if I can't put us side by side. There we go. Hello to everyone. So you are getting things up and running with other areas.
Yes, we have been able to help other school districts over the last 8 years. We started 8 years ago, actually this month, with SNACpack. And so over the last, many years, other school districts have heard about what we do and have asked, for some guidance on how to get started, where we get our funding, where we get our food, et cetera. And but SNACpack specifically serves the students in Saratoga Springs School District in grades K through 12, all 8 buildings.
Wow. Share a little bit about what SNACpack does, and then we'll backtrack because your origin story is really powerful. But I'd like to frame for our community what it is that you folks are doing.
Sure. So we are considered a program that focuses on children in our community who live with what's called food insecurity. And that term, I think, gets thrown around a lot, and I don't know if everyone knows what it means. So I will kind of, break it down and explain. So food insecurity is basically children or even adults who live in homes who may or may not have consistent food. So students, who have school food, breakfast and lunch provided to them at school Monday through Friday, may go home in the evenings or on the weekends and may have very little or no food. And so we started this program 8 years ago. A backpack program is not unique to to us. There have certainly been many other backpack programs in our throughout our country. And so hearing about those other programs and kind of deciding is that something that would be needed in our community. And so what we do is, with the help of colleagues in all of the buildings, we provide weekly backpacks. We actually don't even send backpacks home anymore, but bags of food for children who may or may not have food over the weekends. And we pack every Thursday because the bags go home specifically for the weekends. So the bags go home every Friday. And the idea is that within each bag each week, there is a range of food items. I rotate the menu so that children are not always having the same food items. Much of the food does have to be non-perishable for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, I can't send home fresh produce or frozen items because the food sits in the school buildings from Thursday night through Friday afternoon. And then the children bring the bags home either on the bus or, if they're picked up. And then the idea is there are approximately 6 meals in each of those bags. And that will get the children through to when they come back to school on Monday morning. And when we started, we were, just not sure if there were really going to be a lot of kids within Saratoga Springs, because I think people do think of Saratoga Springs as the land of plenty, and we are. But certainly within every single community, there are students who are in need. And sometimes it's just a temporary situation where a family may lose employment, for whatever, millions of different reasons. And they just don't have enough to help, to feed their children. Sometimes, students are involved in this program, pretty much their whole school careers. And really the goal is to make sure that these kids certainly have enough food, but bigger picture, that when these kids are identified by our school district personnel, whether it's the classroom teacher, social worker, principals, any kind of school employee can recognize that there are children living with with food insecurity, and then all of the ripple effects that happen when children don't have enough food. On a daily basis, we all need food, but longer term, when children are living in that kind of an environment, it can cause, anxiety, depression, mental illness. Kids might not be coming to school. It can cause them to be lethargic in school because they can't focus. And then that also trickles down to them being successful in school. So that is what we do. And we are currently feeding right now this school year approximately 230 children every single week. And
I would imagine people are surprised to hear that. 230 children.
I'm sure they are. There are honestly probably more than that number. We do, just to backtrack a little bit, this program is not a program where parents can ask to be a part of. It really has to be determined from counselors, from interactions with the children in the school, that there is indeed a situation where the kids don't have enough food.
Right.
And the food is intended for children. Certainly, other members of the family, maybe, partaking, but the food that we choose, the food that I choose really is child friendly. And again, so adults can't ask for their kids to be a part of the program. It has to be that the students are really, identified as needing. And at the height of COVID, when we were completely shut down, there were some families who lost jobs, especially a lot of the service workers, restaurants, and other businesses that were very temporarily shut down. So during that time, for almost a year, we were actually helping about 280 kids. So yeah,
filled a really, really important and unexpected gap. You were able to bridge. You were actually bringing bags directly to children's doors.
We were during that time. So we deliver we pack every Thursday. And so the world shut down. Our last day of school was Friday, March 13th. Every teacher will remember that day. And then the following Thursday, I had already placed our food order and we still packed. And we deliver in the summers anyways. So we already have an infrastructure of teachers from every building who come to St. Clement's, which is where we pack. And so we kind of just went into summer mode, and summer mode lasted for a year and a half. So, during that time, we were delivering directly to the children's homes. And it actually was interesting because it allowed us to also bring kids work from school. A lot of kids were either choosing to be virtual or temporarily virtual. So it became more than just a food delivery every week. It became kind of a check-in, checking to make sure the kids were doing okay. And then throughout this process, we also started providing toiletries, because as we all know, toiletries became scarce during that time for everyone. And, again, especially if you're choosing, where you can spend your money, sometimes those are luxury items. So we were able to, with some high school students actually, who had been helping SNACpack for years, became aware that this might be an additional need, and they went into action, and they created their own little group called Toga Toiletries. And so they actually communicate. Parents can communicate with them what kind of toiletries are needed. These high school students pack the bags, and then they bring the bags to me every week, and then in turn, those bags, toiletry bags, are also brought home with the food items. And we all need toothpaste and toothbrushes and shampoo and sometimes diapers. Even though our students our students are older than that, sometimes there are little ones at home. So that is part of what the Toga Toiletries is helping as well, to help families as much as we possibly can.
You've become a really interesting barometer of what's happening in homes via our children. You have such an interesting lens, and you're also you're a music teacher, which is why we're hearing some music in the background.
Yeah, I always have, when I don't have students in front of me, I have my quiet, calm, my little fireplace is playing over on my smartboard, and so there's always music going on in Mrs. Trimmings' classroom. So, I mean, is that a good segue, Leslie, for me to talk about, like, how we started?
I would love to hear about that, because the piece that comes through is the humanization of these young people, right? And their own personal stories. And that's, I was framing it that you work with kids all day long. And this has been a totally different element that gives this different bridge into our youth community and the huge need that clearly
It
there is.
really does. And, as a music teacher, I'm at a huge building. I'm at Dorothy Nolan Elementary, and we have over 800 students, and I teach over 600 myself. And, you know, and because of that, I really don't have that interaction every day with every student. So I don't personally see in my position as a music teacher, some of the more in-depth personalities, and get to know kids as much as the classroom teachers do. But having said that, it was 10 years ago now. My husband and I, we have 3 biological children, and a friend of our oldest daughters started coming over to hang out to our house. They were in 8th grade at the time. And there were just some red flags that were kind of going up in my mind as a teacher and as a mom, of, how he was dressed, his extreme thinness, conversations that he would just mention about how he had moved, and then a few weeks later how he had moved again. And in that first 6-month period, he had moved 4 times. And so just, again, those kind of red flags about, his home life were starting to, be waking me up a little bit as to there's something wrong here. And then through a few different situations that happened, he ended up coming to stay with us through that summer. And that summer living situation became his mom actually left town. And so at the time he was 15, and he is one of 6 children. And the other 5 siblings had been gradually either taken out of the home by family members or had voluntarily left, and they had gone back to California. So we're not just talking, right in the next county, we're talking across the country. And quite frankly, he stayed. I'm going to not use his name, if that's okay, for his, for his confidentiality. But he stayed. He was in 7th, 8th grade at the time, because he really thought his mom was going to change. And he has articulated a few times that he thought if he loved her enough that she would, that she would change and focus on him more, and not on the, unhealthy lifestyle that she was leading, that was leading them to not have, any kind of stability at all.
Yeah.
So he ended up moving in with our family. We went to court, actually, and we became his legal guardians, because we wanted to be able to advocate for him in school and for his medical needs, and all those things that you legally can't do unless you are some kind of legal guardian. So that was his 9th grade year, and he was very quiet about his past for a long time. He was just acclimating to a very, very different home. And I do have to say that year was the first year that he ever played a sport. He had never had that opportunity before. He played football, and then eventually he actually ended up doing track. He was placed in an amazing program that our high school had recently started before that, called the Spring program, which is for at-risk students. And they have really amazing teachers, kind of like, the real coaches of each grade level: social studies, English, math, etc. And they really, really intensely helped these kids to be able to get from 1 week to the next, and then eventually from 1 year to the next. So for the first time, our son, and I call him my son, he had parents advocating for him. He had teachers who were, realizing that it wasn't just because he was being lazy. And he, about a year after he moved in, started telling us about truly some of his experiences, his childhood experiences, many of which were very, very traumatic. And the consistent theme of their childhood was not having enough food, and not having a stable home, not knowing if in the middle of the night they were going to be asked to woken up and asked to leave their home. When he moved in with us, and I wish you could see, but he had a laundry basket this big, and everything that he owned in the whole wide world would fit in that laundry basket. And that was the life that they led. They had to be able to pack up and move at a moment's notice. So he had very few personal belongings, and even pictures from his childhood, things that we all just take for granted. So anyways, he started telling us that there wasn't food, and when my kids go to the refrigerator and they say, "Mom, there's nothing to eat," there's usually plenty to eat. It's either you have to make it or it's not what you necessarily want at the moment. And we all say that all the time. Kids who live in food insecure homes actually go to the pantry and there's nothing there. And so that was a huge wake-up call. I grew up in Saratoga Springs. I'm born and raised here, went to Saratoga, all the schools here, and was blessed to be privileged enough to have food in my pantry and have opportunity to do things. And the thought that if there's one student, I wonder if there's more. So that was a huge, aha moment. And that motivated me to reach out to my church. I'm very involved as a musician at St. Clement's Church that has a very active food pantry. So using the resources and kind of guidance from the people who have been running that food pantry for many, many years, I asked about backpack programs, and they actually said that they had, kind of always wondered if there was a need, but they were so busy focusing on the adults. They didn't know how to, kind of branch into the school system. So I feel like, whatever higher power you believe in, but the higher power in, was putting all of these pieces into motion for this to happen. And so that January of 2014, we did a test here at Dorothy Nolan. I had in our faculty meeting, I presented, I said, okay, teachers, it is up to you to, notice the students who are in front of you. And do you think these are the criteria of what a chronically hungry child, physical characteristics, emotional, attendance. And within that first month, we had about 45 kids at Dorothy Nolan alone. And then and I was shopping on my lunch. I was running to the grocery store on my lunch because I didn't know how to do any of this. So I was running to the grocery store on my lunch, filling up grocery carts.
And I imagine just presenting the teachers with that list, that checklist of how this might be reflected and showing up in a child in their classroom must have been an aha. It's had a huge ripple effect again, that no one could have foreseen. So again, going back 8 years, at that time, we only had one social worker for our entire school district. And that social worker actually had to write a grant for her own salary.
With whole district?
The whole district. There was no social workers in any of the buildings. So that, I couldn't just do this in my own little bubble of Dorothy Nolan. I certainly had the support of my administrators, but I had to put together, all of our, how we were going to do this. And I had to present it to the board. And it was Dr. Piccarello at the time, who was extremely welcoming, from his own personal childhood of struggles with poverty that he was very open with our staff over the years. And I felt that he was the right person at that time to say, okay, can we try this? And our board, was very supportive. I do want to just say that, our school district does not pay for this program at all. There's not one penny that comes from the school district.
Is it all donated? Is all from donations?
So my husband and I, we went through the process. We had a lawyer friend who gave us his services for free to become a 501c3 charity, which, takes some time. So we went through that whole process to officially become that kind of an organization. But all the donations monetarily and food, are basically my husband and I, mom and pop, kind of reaching out into the community. He does all the grant writing, and then again, over time, me being invited to speak at all different kinds of events such as this. Even though we're not in person, this is the perfect kind of partnership that our community is so blessed to have. We have so many organizations, big and small, sometimes very small, like mom and pops, who are doing great things. And so being invited to speak at some different functions kind of also was that ripple effect. So I can say, going back to the social worker situation, pardon me, it became very, very clear through SNACpack as well as through other things. And just the demographics of our community have been changing.
Yeah.
It just happens in every community, but they really have been over the last 15, 20 years. The realization that we're not doing enough and that we don't have enough personnel to help families who are in crisis, whether it be a very, very temporary situation. I mean, I've had situations, my own husband lost his job, and that was terrifying. But when you live in the cycle of poverty, and the cycle of poverty is very, very real, it is very hard to break out of that cycle of poverty. And we were not doing enough in our school district. So I have to say, one of the most profound moments for me was when Rich asked if he could put together a kind of a slideshow of his life to help me to explain his life.
Mhm.
And we put it together and we presented it at the Board of Education. And I also went and presented it to the middle school faculty. And he had only been there, like the year before. And I have to say, I mean, teachers were openly weeping. They were shocked. They were heartbroken. They were upset that they didn't realize that him and other students like him, the reason they are the way they are is not because they want to be lazy or they want to not come to school. When you're picked up and moved in the middle of the night and you don't even know where you are living, and you are a child, you can't get yourself to school. And all of the parts of that puzzle of families who are living in those kinds of traumatic situations, the children are the innocent victims. They really are. And so this became extremely personal for our family. And I think that's one of the things that really does resonate with people, is that this is not just some story from far away. Because we all, we know that there's poverty all around the world. And in this community, there was just not enough light shed on the fact that there's extreme poverty everywhere. And then there are kids who are coming to school who have not eaten since Friday afternoon at lunchtime. And we need to do better. And social workers are trained to be able to help with so many more things. So I'm helping to fill their bellies. But once we now have a social worker in every single building, and which is
Wow.
and we have, and it's not just because of SNACpack. I just want to say it's not just because, I mean, we were one of the catalysts, certainly to bring that awareness, but it was so many other factors coming together. And now we have counseling departments in all of our schools. And so I think for us, that moment that we presented his story to the middle school, it was, and ever since then, my mission is to feed them and for us to let these kids know that they're seen, that they're not ghost children. Because there are kids who behaviorally act out and they're very well known. And then there are the kids like my son who just quietly sit in the back of the classroom with their hood up and they're hungry and they don't know what kind of situation they're going to go home to. They don't know if they're going to have food when they get home, and they don't say anything. And
They're just
so,
persevering. It's
yeah,
all that they can do.
that's all. They're in survival mode. They're,
Totally.
they're
Totally.
and um, to be able to be in school and to know that they are seen, to know that they have other services that are now going to be provided to them, that they can get, recommendations for therapies and medical care and other kinds of financial support. It really has changed lives. And I can say, I don't, statistically, I would have to double check, but I am pretty sure that we have not had one student who has been referred to SNACpack program drop out of school. Not one. Not one. And that is certainly
extraordinary.
That is certainly, one of the challenges, when they become 16 and 17 and they feel that their life is hopeless and they feel that school is not a place that they are finding success. Why go?
Right.
Why go?
Right. So you're actually, it's creating school also as a welcoming place for them. And,
Yes.
and it's, and it's a metric, it's a real metric. We're talking about very real children, human beings. And here's a metric that you can see them succeeding, getting through school and all. And that's extraordinary. And
it's not even just succeeding academically, it's just the emotional support. And I personally am the one that I deliver in my building. So for me, every single Friday, to be able to get the hugs that I get, the thank yous that I get, and little ones, they're so innocent, and they thankfully haven't gotten to the point of embarrassment yet. Which is something that we struggle with in middle school and high school. We have many students who've been identified who will not bring bags
want to
home.
participate.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But in the elementary buildings, Mrs. Trimmings, thanks for my food, down the hall, and that is, that's
joy unleashed. It's joy unleashed and trust building. And you're starting early enough with those little ones, it's an exceptional reflection of the foundation of survival, right? When we meet survival, people can thrive and can open their wings. And it's an extraordinary story. I got to hear you last year. You and I both spoke with Youth Squared, another exceptional local organization that's empowering and lifting our young people to lift other young people. And I just was left speechless, Karey. I just was extraordinarily moved by your willingness to lean in and take action where you saw a need, and also knowing that you did it on your own personal level, and now you were rippling it out into the community. And these are the stories that we need to know are happening here and now, and that we all can build on.
They are, absolutely.
Yeah. My goodness, I just...
Thank you. It's my mission, until my last breath. I'm going to be the lady who feeds. So
you are the lady who's bringing both food and music and hugs, and tying in the whole communities, the schools and St. Clement's and so many others. I will make sure on the website that we have a link to your organization. I'm sure people can go there to find out how to volunteer and donate. Is there anything you'd like the community to know about how they can support you?
Just, that there are so many worthy organizations in our community. And I think one of the confusions has been for a very long time is, you see that we're a school district program, and there is that assumption that we're funded by the school district, and we're not. We operate within the school district, but we're our own little, separate entity, and that we are always in need. We're always in need. We, spend a lot of, the cost of food has gone up for all of us, and the cost of food at the food bank, has also exponentially gone up. So it's just, we're feeding a lot of kids, and I never say no. I get phone calls sometimes on a Thursday morning, I know you're packing this afternoon, but there's a family in crisis. A family has become homeless. A family's moving into our district that's in crisis. And I never say no, and I never will say no. But the money has to come from somewhere, and food donations are welcome. However, I do choose specific child-friendly food. And, sometimes when people see food donations are welcome, they go and they empty their pantry. And, and sometimes that's actually more work for us than it is help, because a lot of that food ends up not being something that we can use.
The funding, the donation of funds actually becomes your fuel that lets the
Right.
wheels turn, because you have very specific wheels in place to
Right.
make all this happen.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
good to note, and we're gonna all be your mouthpiece,
Thank you.
and look forward to hearing more about SNACpack and their superhero,
Thank you.
Karey Trimmings
Thank
out
you,
there.
Lezlie.
Be well. Happy New Year. Stay
Happy
well
New
to
Year to
everyone.
you too. And
And
have a wonderful weekend of
thank
celebration.
you. Thank you so much. To be
Thank you.
continued. Bye.
Bye.